Good evening and welcome to tonight's program, Ask the Experts, a webinar about voting and ballot questions featuring Dr. Gilberto, ZELAYA, and Ms. Diane HIBINO. This program is presented by the League of Women Voters of Montgomery County and co-sponsored by the National Council of Jewish Women and Adas Israel Congregation. We would also like to thank the following who have been partners in publicizing this event. Temple Shalom, Congregation Or Hadash, Washington Hebrew Congregation, Temple Emmanuel, Kehilat Shalom, Congregation Har Zion Agudath Achim. The sponsors of this program are all non-partisan organizations and do not speak to issues regarding candidates or political parties. This meeting is being recorded and will be available on the League of Women Voters of Montgomery County website. A list of resources for your questions about voting is posted in the chat box. Both of tonight's speakers will make their presentation and a Q&A session will follow. You are invited to ask your questions using the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen. Just type your question into the box and hit return. We will try to answer all questions, and if we do not, please use the resource list in the chat box. This list will be shared on your screen at the end of the program. Tonight's speakers. Dr. Gilberto ZELAYA, known to county residents as Dr. Z, is the Community Empowerment and Public Information Officer of the Montgomery County Board of Elections. He is responsible for coordinating community relations and outreach, with an emphasis on compliance with Montgomery County's Spanish language requirements under the Voting Act. Ms. Diane HIBINO is the co-president of the Montgomery County League of Women Voters. She first joined the League in 1972 and has been active on the League's board for many of her years as a member and has worked on educating and advocating for League programs and policies. During the 2020 election cycle, Diane has used her Spanish-speaking skills to translate important election information and to serve as League spokesperson to the Spanish-speaking community. It is now my pleasure to invite Diane HIBINO to begin tonight's presentation.
Thank you very much. I think that all of you know that the order has been changed a little bit, so I'm going to start with the discussion on ballot questions while we wait for Dr. ZELAYA to come to attend our meeting. There is no reason to wonder whether people are thinking about the elections. It's on the front burner, and I think that it is very important that all of us voters in Montgomery County and in the state of Maryland know what's on the ballot for questions, because they are as important and a good way to express our opinions as voting for candidates. So tonight I'm going to talk about the 6 ballot questions that are up for our vote. 2 of them are from the state and 4 are from the county. The ballot questions for changes to the state constitution need to be passed by 3/5 of the General Assembly. That is both in the House of Delegates and in the Senate. And you'll also notice that the language of the ballot questions is a bit of legalese, but the wording is important because the exact wording is will become part of the state constitution or part of the county charter if the measures pass. And finally, you should know that these questions that are posed to all of us voters must pass with a simple majority. So let's go to question 1. Question 1 is an amendment to the state constitution about budget decisions. Every year, the state passes a balanced budget, unlike the federal government, and the governor and the General Assembly come to an agreement. Currently, the governor proposes the budget and the General Assembly approves it without any increases except for the judicial branch and assembly operations. The General Assembly can increase the budget only if it finds new sources of revenue to pay for the increase. But in actuality, the Assembly can only recommend cuts to the budget. So question 1 would give the General Assembly the right to move spending from one agency to another, or it could spend more on one item as long as it reduces the same amount in other areas in order to pay for it. The key point here is when the change would occur. It would impact the 2024 budget bill. Why is this key? It's key because it would take place after the current governor has completed his final term of office. So let me give you some arguments in favor and some against. For decades, the General Assembly has wanted this change, but sitting governors did not. Obviously, they did not want to lose the power they have. So in this question 1, the change would not take place until 2024. Our legislature has less budgetary power than any other in the United States. Another argument in favor is that the public would have more opportunity to interact with their legislators since they could change where spending might be needed. And finally, the requirement for a balanced budget remains. So as I said, the advantage is it would not take place until the budgeting for 2024. But there are arguments against question 1. Because the governor has the power to veto line items, there could be more special sessions, which could require additional costs to the taxpayers. Also, legislators could be swayed by their constituents and not see the way the governor looks at measures at a statewide level. And it could take longer to pass a budget. So if you vote against this amendment, question 1, it would keep the current laws in place, with the governor holding the bulk of budget decision-making powers. If you vote for the amendment, it would give the General Assembly more ability to change how the budget is spent as long as the budget is balanced. So that's question 1 on the state budget. I'll move to question 2. This is another state ballot question about expanding commercial gaming. Back in 2007, the Maryland Constitution said the only way to authorize more commercial gambling is through a majority of voters in a general election. This was done in 2008 and 2012. Currently, we have slot machines or video lottery terminals and table games in casinos. They are legal. This question would approve sports and events wagering in the state and would allow the General Assembly to authorize the State Lottery and Gaming Control Commission to issue licenses. So what are the arguments for this question number 2? Well, 14 other states have sports betting, including nearby Virginia, Pennsylvania, Delaware, New Jersey, and West Virginia. Also, illegal sports betting is already taking place, so this could possibly reduce some criminal activity. And finally, Maryland could raise perhaps up to $20 million for additional public education funding from the additional sports betting. Arguments against question 2 would be that Maryland already has slots and table games, so do we need more gambling? It might contribute to gambling addictions. Also, most of the revenue would go to the gambling industry, perhaps up to 80%, and education would only get a much, much smaller percentage. And finally, this could have impact on the fans that watch the games and events because they may be more interested in the outcome and their own bets rather than the sport itself. So a vote against question 2 would mean that commercial wagering on sport events would remain illegal in Maryland. A vote for question 2 would give the General Assembly the ability to pass legislation to establish a program of sports wagering with a portion going to public education. Okay, now let's look at the county ballot questions. The first one would be question A. They have to do with our property taxes and how they are levied, and also about the county council members and how they should be represented. So let's go to question A first. This question would prohibit the county council from adopting a tax rate that exceeds the tax rate for the previous year, unless all members vote for an increase. The key words here are tax rate. The tax rate would not increase from the previous year's rate. Currently, the county council is limited to tax revenues, not the tax rate. These revenues cannot exceed the previous year's revenues unless all members vote for an increase. The revenues are affected by the Consumer Price Index, and there are exceptions such as new construction, newly rezoned areas, and property that's assessed differently in state law or with new uses, or that's in a tax district that provides funding for capital improvements. And you know that the taxes from our property are used for schools, for public safety, for health, social services, and for our libraries. So each year, right now, the county council sets the tax rate, which is applied to your assessed property, and has to make sure that this rate does not produce revenues that are higher than the previous year's revenues. The revenues are capped. So your tax rate varies from year to year. Some years your tax rate might rise, some year your tax rate might fall. You do not know how it will change in the future. This county council proposed this amendment as an alternative to the next question, question B, which was proposed by a petition from citizens. But let me give you the arguments in favor of question A. Setting a limit on your property tax rate, not the revenues collected, makes it easier to understand how taxes are levied. Also, it will allow the county to benefit from local economic growth and increase on property values to pay for those services that I mentioned that residents need. And also, a study showed that if the property tax were fixed, even over the past only 3 years, instead of being reduced to remain under the revenue cap, the county might have collected up to $100 million more in taxes. So what are the arguments against this question A? As assessed property values rise, the tax rate could result in property owners having to pay more in taxes. And it could discourage property owners from moving into the county and could encourage others to leave the county. So a vote against this question A means that property taxes, as is now, would be levied not to exceed the revenue collected from the previous year, but it includes a fluctuating tax rate. A vote for this question A would change the basis for property tax limits from one based on revenues to one based on the tax rate. Again, not to exceed the prior year's rate. And both would have to be passed by all the members of the county council. Question B also talks about property taxes. And this amendment comes from a petition by citizens of the county, and you needed at least 10,000 signatures. It would prohibit the county council from levying a property tax that would exceed last year's revenues, not including the consumer price index increase. It is the same law that's currently practiced in the county for the purpose of collecting property taxes based on revenue, and it includes exceptions previously discussed, such as new construction, etc. But the difference is that no voting or authority by the council, unanimous or not, could change the revenue limits from the prior year. No increases whatsoever. So the arguments for this would keep the taxpayers from having to pay increased property taxes because the council could not change the limit. It could also encourage the council to be more fiscally responsible in spending decisions. But arguments against question B would be limiting revenue growth is not fiscally sustainable because the county continues to grow. The county might have to eliminate or reduce services or even limit its reserves. And this might produce a change in our bond rating. A revenue cap would prevent the county from benefiting from increased property values and a growing tax base. There would be no means to override the cap. So a vote against question B means that the county charter would not be amended and the property tax limits would be based on revenues from the prior year unless an increase is voted by all members of the council. It means things would stay the same. A vote for this question B means that the council cannot override the property tax revenues from the previous year, even with agreement from all council members. So again, to repeat, now we see question B, arguments for, so a vote against this would keep the property tax capped at the revenues from the prior year. And a vote for question B means that the council cannot override the property tax revenues from the previous year. Its hands are tied. Okay, let's go on to question C, please. Thank you. This is about increasing county council members, and it comes from the council's Government Operations Committee. It proposes changing from the current 9 council members of 5 districts and 4 at-large seats to a total of 11 council members. And this proposal would increase the district members where you must live in the district that you represent, increase it to 7 from the current 5, but it would keep the 4 at-large seats. They represent, the at-large seats represent the entire county, and they can reside anywhere in the county. So what are the arguments in favor? The county has grown in the last 30 years since the last council district change, and now each district has twice the number of residents as surrounding counties. So for every district council member, there are 210,000 residents. In Prince George's County, for example, there are only 101,000 residents for each district member. And in Fairfax County, there are only 128,000 residents per district member. So another argument in favor, with increased districts, each district council member would be more responsive to local issues. It might lead even to more diversity on the council. And voters will still be able to vote for not only their district member, but for the 4 at-large members. Arguments against this change to 11 members is that if we were to increase to 11, it would cost taxpayers more because of associated staff and office needs. Increasing the size of the council could lead to more time needed to reach decisions, 11 members instead of 9. And with the current at-large seats, there is less countywide representation. I'm sorry, I think I just changed that. Hang on a second. Okay, so again, against would be that it would cost more money with 11 members. And with the current at-large seats, there's less countywide representations now because, and in the recent past, all the at-large members reside down county. So there's an unequal distribution of at-large members to represent the entire county. So the arguments against is the cost, and there's less representation because currently, and in the recent past, all the at-large members have been from down county. So if you vote against this question C, it means that the council would remain currently as it is with 5 district members and 4 at-large seats. If you vote for question C, it means that there would be 2 more districts, making a total of 7 districts, which would be apportioned, of course, after the 2020 census, and you would still have the 4 at-large seats. That's question C. Question D also talks about the county council makeup. And this amendment comes from another citizen-led petition that asked to increase the county council districts to a total of 9 based on the census reapportionment. It would eliminate the 4 at-large seats and would require each council member, district council member, to reside in her or his district. And the total council makeup would remain at 9 members. So arguments for this question D: due to the total population growth, the number of residents currently represented by district council members is again very high, as I said last time. It is over 200,000 residents per district member. So this would change it to only about 116,000 residents per district. And this is more in line with other districts, which has, as I said to you, 101,000 in Prince George's with 9 district seats and 2 at-large seats. And Fairfax County has 9 district seats and only 1 at-large seat. And again, this council makeup has not changed in 30 years. And with the census, this might be an opportune time to change the districts. Another argument for, with fewer residents in each district, it would increase the responsiveness of the council members to local issues, and it could lead to more diversity in candidates and council members. It would assure that each district is equally represented by the council, on the council. And it could save the county campaign spending and candidate spending with smaller districts and fewer voters to contact. The arguments against question D: eliminating the 4 at-large seats would reduce voter representation. For example, voters would vote for and be represented by just 1 council member, not the additional 4 at-large members. It might lead to emphasis on local issues as opposed to county-wide issues. And restructuring the county council composition may not achieve better representation as the voters make their choice of representatives at the ballot box. So a vote against question D means that the charter would not be amended and the council would continue with 9 members. That's 5 district and 4 at-large seats. A vote for question D means that the charter would divide the county into 9 council districts that requires each member to reside in her or his district and be elected by the voters of that district. So that, in conclusion, is a short wrap-up of the 6 ballot questions. And I hope you understand them a little bit better, and that perhaps if you have questions later, I'll be happy to answer them. Thank you.
Thank you, Diane. Thank you very much for your explanations and helping to clarify that. So it is now my pleasure to invite Dr. ZELAYA to make his presentation.
Good evening, everyone. So good evening once again. My name is GILBERTO ZELAYA with the Montgomery County Board of Elections. I feel like I'm preaching to the choir, so you're all field experts, so, but I do thank you for your patience. I'm pretty sure you all know that tomorrow is the voter registration deadline of October 13th. There is multiple ways to enter and to participate in the franchise. One, you could text the word vote to 77788. You must use a Maryland driver's license, permit, or ID. However, we do recognize that not everyone has those 3 forms of ID. So if need be, you could download from our website at 777vote.org. And I'm pretty sure in the league's website, they have the corresponding links to the voter registration application in English, Spanish, Korean, traditional, and simplified Chinese. Please note that this deadline of October 13th is a postmark deadline, which means if you cannot make it to the Board of Elections, as long as the post office dates your envelope October 13th, even if we receive it a couple of days after the fact, we will process that application submission. You could call our office at 240-777-8500. I'm pretty sure we're very popular, so it's very difficult to get an immediate response. You could also email us at elections@montgomerycountymd.gov. But in all honesty, I highly recommend, if you have any issues or questions, by all means, we're open to the public Monday through Friday from 8:30 to 5 p.m. And then you could go to the Motor Vehicles Administration by appointment only. We did deliver voter registration applications to the Montgomery County Public Libraries. So even though the library is closed, their vestibule, their lobbies are open, and so they have the voter registration applications in the identified languages. Moving forward, it's also very important that you update your voter registration at any time you move. There's a name change, address change, party affiliation change, all of the above. One of the biggest urban myth is that when you request the post office to forward your mail to your new address, that any correspondence from the Montgomery County Board of Elections will make it, and it will not. So hence, our sample ballot will not be forwarded, but the well-renowned League of Women Voters Voters Guide will, but our sample ballot will not. So by all means, ensure that you have your voter registration current and up to date. You could text the word check, C-H-E-C-K, to 77788 to review your voter registration records. But also it's a great tool because, as you know, we're above the 350,000 mail-in ballot requests. So one of the most popular questions is, did you receive my ballot? And so we will touch upon the process in which that occurs. We will apologize in advance. We're not Amazon, so you won't be done in 2 days. There's a whole process in which we will process and we will scan in as accepted your mail-in ballot. But by texting check to 77788, you can review your voter registration. You can see the status of your mail-in application submission, also if that ballot was mailed, and if it was received at the Board of Elections. And if you misplaced our sample ballot, you could also download and view your corresponding sample ballot. If for whatever reason you missed the voter registration deadline of tomorrow, the 13th of October, you will have the opportunity to leverage same-day voter registration. during early voting and on election day. Bring a Maryland driver's license, permit, or ID. If you do not have those 3 forms of state ID, you could bring a bank statement, paycheck, utility bill, or other governmental document with your name and current address. Early voting is from the 26th of October through November 2nd, and election day is November 3rd. And we'll get into more information about those 2 opportunities to register to vote and or vote in person. Now, for individuals regarding voting after a criminal conviction, if you have completed your court order sentence of imprisonment, and even while on probation, you could re-register and join the franchise. But if you're convicted of buying or selling votes, you lose your voter registration privileges in the state of Maryland. So moral of the story, don't do it. And so moving on, we've been, encouraging our voters to leverage the mail-in voter registration option. It's a mechanism that has been in place since the War of 1812. It's safe, it's secure, it's a legitimate form of voting. Another urban myth, even if there's a huge gap between candidates, we are obligated to count every single mail-in ballot. Trust me when I say this, we count every single mail-in ballot. Nonetheless, we will talk briefly about canvass and when those they already have started. And on October 6th, we've started to canvass the mail-in ballot ballots mailed back to the Board of Elections. To request said mail-in ballot, the deadline is October 20th. It's the following Tuesday, and that's a received deadline. Unlike the voter registration, this is not a postmark deadline. We must have your application in-house by the 20th. So please do not deposit your mail-in request in the post office on the 20th, because even if it's postmarked the 20th and we receive it on the 21st or the 22nd, it's not timely. We will not process. So I do recommend you come into the Board of Elections. Please do not deposit those applications, whether it's voter registration or your mail-in ballot, into the ballot drop boxes. For some reason, it's circulating that you could do so. I don't recommend it. We are getting hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of ballots a day. And, we are checking submitted ballots from a couple of days ago. So by the time we make it to that bin, we want to make sure that it's timely. So take that extra step, send it through the post office, get it postmarked, or drop it off at the Board of Elections. If you're submitting your request to vote by mail, text the letters VBM to 77788, submit it online, or come to the Montgomery County Board of Elections. Now, moving forward, there is the opportunity to select web delivery. It's the same deadline, but keep in mind, web delivery was really created for our military personnel and Americans living overseas in countries with poor postal infrastructure and voters with special needs. And why I say that, what's going to happen is when you print your ballot, we're going to have to duplicate. We have bipartisan teams duplicating said ballots. So far, I think our count is over 32,000 web delivery ballots, and the vast majority of those ballots are not necessarily from our military personnel overseas in Afghanistan, Iraq. It's individuals living in Rockville and Gaithersburg. It's not internet voting, as some millennials think it is. It's not. So nonetheless, it is an opportunity for you to cast your vote, but nonetheless, we would recommend the traditional postal mechanisms. And the reason is we will need to duplicate because that 8.5 sheet of paper will not scan on our high velocity scanners. And so we will need to basically leverage our bipartisan team to duplicate your ballot on the official card stock. So if you are voting by mail and you did request your traditional postal packet, which looks something like this, by all means, don't sit on it. Send it to us as soon as possible. The quicker we get it, the quicker we could process, scan it in as received, batch sort, and then incorporate into our canvas. Please, by all means, use a black or dark blue ballpoint pen. Trick, if it clicks, use it. If it doesn't click, that means it's a stylus or a marker. Do not use crayons, highlighters, mascara. We've seen it all. Use a black or dark blue point pen, please, okay? Because otherwise, then we will need to duplicate that ballot. Now, if you have any concerns about the United States Postal Service, their blue collection bins, whether they're stealing them or sealing them or moving them, You also have ballot drop boxes. As of now, we have 25 in Montgomery County. You could text the word box, B-O-X, in your zip code, and the system, the texting mechanism, will provide the 4 closest ballot drop boxes, location, address, and if you click the address, it'll give you driving directions. And it also will give you a link where we'll list the rest of the ballot drop box and installation dates, and it will give you the post office locator, so you could identify the closest post office. So once again, the word is box and your zip code, and you will get the corresponding information. And so for those individuals, these boxes weigh between 400 and 500 pounds. No one's gonna pick them up or move them. They're under 24-hour surveillance. We're working with county security, the county police department, the Department of Homeland Security. And if a ballot drop box is located in a municipality like Rockville and Gaithersburg, we're working with the corresponding police department as well. We have bipartisan teams picking up once to twice a day and more as we near early voting. And we work including Sundays. So by all means, leverage those boxes, and we will do our due diligence to get them back at the Board of Elections. As you look at those images, our staff will, there's a procedure they must follow. Each will have their set of keys. There's tamper tapes, there's tags, there's seals that must be checked before unseating the tamper tape, seals, and tags. Then it's documented. Then the box is emptied out. Then the blue bins have their own corresponding tags and seals. And then once the ballots have been removed and the tags, tags, seals, and tamper tape have been unseated, they will put a new tamper tape, new seals, and new tags, and they will document that. So if this is a morning team, the afternoon team will take the carbon copy, and they need to basically verify on site with both bipartisan team members that all the numbers and sequence and letters match. At any time that something doesn't add up, then they'll contact the Board of Elections immediately. And then once those ballots make it to the Board of Elections, we're holding off for 24 hours. We are living in the world of COVID-19, and this is the reason why we're meeting virtually. And once that 24-hour clock has passed, then our teams will start date stamping, batching them, sorting them. And if you look at this image on the bottom right-hand corner, this gentleman actually scanning my ballot during the primary elections. And then what happens is your corresponding state record will be updated from ballot sent to ballot received. But it's not done at the time of scanning. Once again, we are not Amazon. It's done that evening. The State Board of Elections will upload all of those records scanned, not just for Montgomery County, but for the entire state. And then you could check by texting the word check to 77788, and you can see if your ballot was received. Please give us about 2 weeks. We're sitting on thousands of ballots. We are limited by the number of team members that could sit side by side. If this was 2018, we would be shoulder to shoulder. Now we're 6 to 10 feet apart. So we are limited. So please be patient with us. We're doing our due diligence, working 12 to 14 hours a day. We're here to serve, but I need for you to please be patient. And then once the ballots are batched and sorted, they go into our Canvas team. If you go online to 777vote.org and click Canvas schedule, tomorrow actually we have a live stream, and you could watch us do our magic. We're at the Plum Guard Community Center. If you want to come in person, you have to make a reservation. The reservations are 2-hour blocks of time. There's a number on our website. You will call that number and you will make a reservation. And then in those 2 hours, you can sit at the bleachers, distance, separated 6 feet apart. We have X's, and it's all, we'll provide the instructions, and you could observe live, but we also have the live feed. And tomorrow will be our 3rd day of canvassing. So we've been canvassing since the 6th of October. And so if you're not voting in person, you have a desire to vote. If you're not voting by mail, you have a desire to vote in person, you could do so during early voting from October 26th through November 2nd from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. You could text the letters EV for early voting and your zip code. and it will give you the 3 closest early voting centers, location, address, and wait times. So if you live in Silver Spring and you see that the Silver Spring Civic Center has an 1.5 hour wait, if Montgomery Blair has an hour wait, and Wheaton High School has a 20-minute wait, well, hopefully you're good at math and you will go to Wheaton High School because the wait time's shorter, even if you calculate driving time. So once again, the letters EV for early voting, EV, and your zip code, and it will provide the 3 closest early voting locations, the name of said location, the address. If you click the address, it'll give you driving directions and wait times. Or if you don't like to text, you could go to our website at 777vote.org. And these are the locations: the Damascus Community Center, the Germantown Community Center, Bower Park Activity Center in Gaithersburg, the Executive Office Building in Rockville, the Potomac Community Center, the Sandy Spring Fire and Rescue, the Wheaton Library and Community Center, the Mid-County Community Center, the Jane E. Lawton Community Center in Chevy Chase / Bethesda, the Silver Spring Civic Building, and the Maryland Praisner Community Center in Burtonsville, Maryland. In each corresponding early voting location will have their corresponding ballot drop box. And actually they're there as we speak today. And if you do not vote during early voting, then the last opportunity, or leverage same-day registration during early voting, your last opportunity will be on election day. If you text the letters VC, that's for vote center, VC, and your zip code, it will give you the 3 closest early vote center locations, the address, and also wait times. And so similar to early voting, you are not tied to your neighborhood or to the closest vote center. Same thing, simple math. If you live in Clarksburg High School, the wait, let's say, is an hour, and the next closest one will be, let's say, the Germantown Community Center, it's an hour, and the Damascus High School, the wait is 20 minutes, then jump on Ridge Road and go to Damascus and go to the high school and vote. Common sense, simple math. We're here to serve. So the 248 precincts have been consolidated into 39 vote centers. The 11 early voting centers I mentioned, in addition to the full complement of high schools, except Thomas Edison, because Thomas Edison is right next door to Wheaton High School, and the White Oak Community Senior Center, the Nancy Dasick North Potomac Community Center, and the Montgomery County Conference Center and Marriott Hotel in Rockville. So those are the 39 locations. Once again, text the letters VC and your zip code for the closest vote center on election day. And if you did request to vote a mail-in ballot, please vote that mail-in ballot. If you show up to vote in person, you're voting provisionally. Even if you show us your ballot, you either vote your ballot and you could deposit it in a ballot drop box or provide it or give it to one of our poll workers, election judges. But if you have your heart set voting in person, you will vote a provisional ballot. And you're gonna add considerable amount of time to your voting experience on election day. Remember, our election judges are there to serve you, and they're there for you. So please be patient and mindful and respectful. And once again, voting twice is illegal in all 50 states, the District of Columbia, and Puerto Rico. Do not do it. Please, we audit, we certify the elections, and we do our due diligence to ensure that no one votes twice. And if for some reason we investigate and we do our research and we identify a malicious intent, your name will be provided to our Board of Canvassers and our legal counsel, and they will decide whether that name will go, that voter will be forwarded to the state's attorney. And also for those voters wanting to vote independently, especially within our special needs community, you do have the ballot marking device. Essentially, it's a pen, and it does provide the opportunity for you to print your ballot. If you do vote in person, the check-in judge will give you 2 options. You could vote the traditional cardstock ballot. You will get 2 pages double-sided, or you could leverage the ballot marking device. And the great thing about the ballot marking device, if English or Spanish is not your native language, you can listen to the audio and follow the ballot, and you can navigate through the touch screen. It's essentially a touch screen. If you're colorblind, you could select grayscale. If you forgot your glasses or a blind voter, you could, if you forgot your glasses, you can magnify the ballot up to 35%. If you need special needs assistance, we do have the audio tactile keypad. And what's great about this, if you're a paraplegic or you use a sip and puff equipment to communicate, you could actually connect your sip and puff equipment to the ballot marking device. And you could always also leverage the different aspect of this equipment. You could use a sip and puff, do the audio Spanish, you can speed up or slow down the audio, you can select grayscale if you're colorblind, and you can magnify the ballot. So it really gives you the tool to vote independently, because in the Constitution it says you have the right to vote a secret ballot. And of course, if you're getting assistance, you know, in the heart and the essence of voting, some people may not see that as independent voting. But we do have the ballot marking device, and you have every right to choose that if you vote in person during early voting or on election day. And let me see. And thank you so much. I'm here to serve. Make your vote plan. Tomorrow's the voter registration deadline. Next Tuesday, the 20th, is the mail-in request deadline. If you have mailed your ballot, please give us at least 2 weeks to process. It's a process. It's a very hands-on manual process. Please be patient. We're here to serve, and make your vote plan and vote once.
Thank you, Dr. Zelaya. That was a great deal of information. I'm sure we have a great number of questions now. And so I am going to hand everybody over to the Q&A manager.
That would be me. Thank you, Leslie, and good evening, everyone. First, I would like to echo thanks to Diane and Dr. Z for their very informative presentations. But the title of tonight's program is Ask the Expert. So now is your opportunity to do just that. There is a Q&A button at the bottom of your screen. Just click on it and type in your questions. We will be monitoring those and sharing them with our speakers. We are going to do our best, and I do believe that we'll be able to answer all of your questions, but I also want to let you know that we promise to be respectful of everyone's time as well. We actually have quite a few questions already, so we are going to jump right in. Experts, are you ready?
Yes.
Okay, here's the first one. I am aware of duplicate ballots having been mailed to some individuals during the recent primary. How does the Board of Elections ensure that all cast only one vote? And I guess that would be for you, Dr. Z.
Yes, so the primary, that seems so long ago. You're worried about the primaries, I'm worried about the general. Okay, so okay, let's go back. So what happened was, remember Governor Hogan's proclamation instructed the State Board of Elections to mail every single registered voter their corresponding ballot. So some individuals, for example, I'll use my name, GILBERTO ZELAYA. And let's say I registered before I went to undergrad, and then down the line, I got married and I moved, and then I registered again with my middle name. So when the primary elections came and every voter was sent a ballot, I got 2 ballots. One that says GILBERTO ZELAYA living in Rockville, and one that says GILBERTO A. ZELAYA living in Clarksburg. So what you need to do is contact the Board of Elections, and we will submit a request, and we will merge those records. So there's only one record. Just because the name is the same and the date of birth, but the addresses are different, or it has a middle initial missing, or a junior or senior, that could be 2 independent records. Also, if you do get your sample ballot, on the back of the sample ballot, it says, if recipient is deceased or does not at this address, please send this back to us. Because then this will initiate the confirmation mailing, which will help us clean the voter registration records. In addition, if you heard in the news in the primary, there were thousands of ballots that came back to the Board of Elections, because since the previous election in 2018 or 16, there are hundreds of records that are outdated. And if the individual keeps the sample ballot or anything from the Board of Election, it doesn't initiate the confirmation mailing for us to clean that record. And so a lot of voters were upset they did not get the record, because through osmosis, we would not get that information. You have to actively update your record by texting the word check to 77788, or you can email the Board of Elections at elections@montgomerycountymd, And then you can make a request. We will do the research and we will initiate the confirmation mailing and to merge those records.
Okay, the next question I think you might have answered with the check response, but I do want to be respectful of the person that submitted it and ask you, and that is, I've had some problems with the state and county using one name and a correct address for me. I actually live in Laytonsville, which shares a zip code with Gaithersburg. Documents have been addressed to Gaithersburg with the correct street address, but some have included first, middle, and last name, others only middle initial, or no middle name or initial. I'm concerned about my signature matching the official name on file. How can I get things changed to ensure accuracy and consistency?
So it's obvious that you have multiple records. So anytime you registered at a farmer's market, or you went to Motor Vehicles Administration and leveraged the Motor Voter Act, or you thought that you needed to re-register because it was a couple of elections or you came back into the area. So for whatever reason, you have multiple records. So you need to contact the Board of Elections to merge it. But also, if you get multiple, if there's a particular, so let's say you get 2 sample ballots at the same address, return and you could say, not at this address, or you could say, I live here, which will give us a note for us to initiate the confirmation mailing. Once again, you could email us and we will initiate our confirmation mailing to clean that record because there's a cost involved. If you have 2 to 3 records, we're printing 2 to 3 sample ballots and you're only using 1, right? So there's a cost, and the taxes that you pay, we're inadvertently mailing you multiple copies and you're only using 1. So help us clean the voter rolls, keep your record updated, text check to 77788 or call us.
Okay, next question. A relative has moved to a care facility. Is it possible for her to vote at her new address?
Yes, so the way she will vote at her new address is by requesting to vote by mail. So she would submit her request to vote by mail. We do have the nursing home program and we work closely with assisted livings and nursing home facilities in Montgomery County. There's a particular, I believe it's 50 beds per facility, but I would highly recommend to contact us. You could text the letters VBM to 77788. You could go to our website at 777vote.org, or you could call us at 240-777-8500, and we could help you gain access to the voter vote by mail application or to submit your request.
Very good, thank you. The next question, a separate sheet of paper with an oath in Spanish was included in many ballots mailed to voters in Montgomery County. Since it doesn't mention the need for signing the oath on the envelope, many Spanish-speaking people may just sign this piece of paper and not the envelope. Will those who do that have their ballots accepted? If not, an injustice has been done.
So thank you for carrying the water for us as a Hispanic male. I can tell you there are very few individuals to make that error. So what happens is the oath, the Spanish oath, so you know, will not fit on the envelope because everything in Montgomery County is bilingual. So the voter registration, the ballot itself is bilingual, but if the oath was to be printed bilingually, this envelope will be a massive envelope. And this is the reason why it's a separate sheet of paper. In addition, there's another document in this sheet of paper, which for whatever reason, non-Hispanics have a lot of concerns. This sheet that's in Spanish is on the back of the exterior envelope. It doesn't fit because if we put all this in Spanish and in English, this envelope will be massive, which increases the cost to deliver it to the voter. So it was added separately. And so this is the English and this is the Spanish equivalent. Having said that, if we see during our first spot check, there's a privacy screen that the State Board of Elections added to the ballot because remember for the primary, there wasn't a privacy screen. And so voters had concerns. So now they added the privacy screen. And once that ballot comes in, we have teams that will tear this flap to see that there's a signature. If there's no signature, we have bipartisan teams that will open the ballot to make sure there's an oath, because it could be that is a Hispanic voter who only signed the oath
I think he's
which was the
frozen.
loose sheet. So what we do is inside, and it will go through the canvas. If there's no signature and there's no, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, if there's no signature and there's an oath, they're fine. But if there's no signature on the return envelope and there's no Spanish language oath, we will contact that voter immediately. So the first thing we're checking is either a signature on the envelope and or a signature inside the envelope itself with the ballot.
Excellent. Okay, I think that addresses that question. And honestly, Diane, I think the next one's for you. As I understand it, the proposed budgetary amendment includes a line item veto. Might that take power away from the legislature in some cases compared to the current situation?
Thank you for that question. It is true. And so there is one argument against that question, one, because the governor would have the power to enact a line item veto. But the problem with that would only be perhaps in cost if they have to call a special session. I think that the General Assembly would still prefer to have the amendment and have the changes to be more flexible in the budget than is current. So yes, that is an issue, but not as important as the amendment itself. So the General Assembly would still want voters to vote for the changes so that they would have a little bit more influence in how the budget is actually carried out in the end.
Thank you. I believe the next question is for Dr. Z, and it is, may I ask which areas belong to Down County?
Yes, so Down County would be, we recognize it's south of kind of the Rockville, Wheaton, Glenmont, Silver Spring, Burtonsville area, Tacoma Park.
Okay. Once your ballot is submitted, are you able to track that your ballot has been received?
Yes, text the word check to 77788. It's not only to review your voter registration, but you could check the chronological timeline of your, not only when your application was processed, when the ballot was mailed, when it was received, once it's scanned in as I presented in the PowerPoint, and then after certification when it was accepted. So it's one less call to the office. Just be patient, text the word check to 77788, and you can follow the timeline of your mail-in ballot.
Okay, the next question. Did Dr. Z say not to use the drop boxes?
No,
Even if we do so this week?
No, that's called fatigue. So that's called 14 hours a day, 7 days a week. Now, if you have concerns with the post office, USPS, Postal Service, you have the ballot drop box. Remember, the post office mailed you your mail-in ballot. We didn't, okay? So the State Board of Elections sent it to you. So at least you got it one way. So to bypass that round trip, you can use the ballot drop box. You could text the word box and your zip code for the closest ballot drop box. And there's also a link in case you want to leverage the United States Postal Service collection bins, because we understand that, you know, we're going to have a total of 50 ballot drop boxes, but for the primary, we had 7. So it's almost a 800% increase. We understand and we'll apologize if it's not in front of your lawn, but if you need to travel somewhere, just text the word box, or do our due diligence, and you can leverage the ballot drop box. They're there for you.
Very good. I know, this is the next question. I know you can use the 77788 vote, VBM, and check in the state of Maryland. Is there a box or early vote on 7788 available in other counties of Maryland? I'm wondering if that meant in Montgomery County, and is it available in other counties?
Yeah. Unfortunately, Montgomery County, we designed this after the 2018 elections, And so I'm in charge of outreach and empowerment. So I saw the need because of the digital divide and that everyone has a laptop or desktop at home. So, but everyone has a cell phone. And so leveraging the technology, we created these SMS texting prompts. And then we did extend it to the state. So Vote, VBM, and Check, we have shared with our local partners, the 24 counties in Baltimore City. But Box, EV, and we have VC for Vote Center, that's specific for Montgomery County. To expand that to all 24 counties in Baltimore City, that's a lot of money, that's a lot of effort. So we could share some of the love, but not all of the love. So we'll try our best, and maybe for 2022, we'll work in conjunction with the State Board of Elections to expand that.
Let's get through this election first though, right?
Yes, please.
One comment, and that is this webinar has been very helpful. Thank you. The next question, and I believe this refers to your wheelchair comment, and that is sip and puff, question mark.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so sip and puff. So for example, who's the gentleman? Stephen Hawkins. There is a sip and puff equipment that they can use to be mobile. And also it's used also to communicate. And so that sip and puff equipment could actually be connected to the ballot marking device so the voter could navigate through the screens to vote. So yes, but if you don't use sip and puff, obviously you wouldn't know what I'm talking about, but it is equipment that exists that individuals could use and could be incorporated into the ballot marking device to vote independently.
That's awesome. For the county council districts, how will they be redrawn? Equal populations or geographic areas?
I guess that would be for me.
That's
Here is a map of the current county council districts, the 5 districts. And as you can see, there are different sizes because the population varies. And so they will draw the lines after the census according to the population changes from this current map, which is based on the 2010 census. So there's no change from 9 to 11 county members with a change in the number of districts. This would be the basis for continuing with 5 districts, but maybe changes a little bit according to the census results. The same with the change to 9 districts. It would be based on population, and the groupings, yes, would be geographical, but mostly by population, as is the House of Representatives based on population.
Very good. Thank you, Diane. The next question, will there be security posted at vote centers to monitor citizens who have been asked by a particular party or candidate to show up to make sure that people who are not eligible to vote do not vote?
Yes, I wouldn't know why people who are not eligible to vote. That doesn't make any sense. In order to register to vote, you must be a U.S. citizen, live in Maryland, and be at least 16 years of age and 18 to vote.
I guess the question has to do with security at the voting centers.
So if you want to be an observer or a watcher, you must contact the State Board of Elections or your local Board of Elections to do so. You cannot just show up and stand behind our check-in table. There's a process. But at the end of the day, the Maryland statute election law states you have to be a U.S. citizen, which means U.S. born or naturalized, of age, and live in Maryland to register to vote. But if individuals have interest in becoming poll watchers, contact your local Board of Elections or the State Board of Elections.
Okay, thank you. The next question, my son and I have the same first and last name. Our middle initial is different. Our 2 ballots arrived at our home without our middle initials. How do we know which belongs to who?
Eeny, meeny, miny, mo. No. Okay. So you can contact the Board of Elections to ask which voter record belongs to which voter. You could also, contact the Board of Elections. You know what? Email me, okay? So Where can I'm gonna put in the chat? Email me, and then I'll forward your questions, so then we could tell you exactly which voter identification number belongs to which. And then I would recommend your son. I don't know if he's junior, the second, the third, the ninth, but put something that would distinguish you and your son, because you're gonna be asking this question again in 2022. This one was free. The next one I'm gonna charge you.
Next question is related. My registration has a middle initial, but ballot does not have it. What shall I do?
It's okay. If you receive one, ballot, vote it. And if you have an issue with what shows up, once again, everyone, text the word check to 77788. If you need to update it, do so. The voter registration deadline's tomorrow. And if there's something you need to change or update after the deadline, then we also could do that once the elections have been certified.
Okay, the next question. When I went to find the drop box at the convention center, the road to access that area has signs that say road closed. What to do?
Text the word box to find another location, but it's available. It's weird. I was there the other day. When the locations were identified, there was no construction then. And then things changed, and now we have construction. So work what we have, text the word box to 77788 with your zip code, and it'll give you the alternative to that ballot drop box. But I'm not familiar with the name. There's a specific road, and I'll apologize, and you could reach that box, and that's what I had to do. You have to go around on 355 and make that right. I remember there's the metro station, and there's the McDonald's on your left side and the metro station on your right. I apologize, I don't remember the name of that road. I just know how to get there. But that's the way to gain access to that ballot drop box. But it is an inconvenience. I apologize. But the problem moving that box when it's in all our publication in the sample ballot, and it's been mailed through we have close to 375,000 mail-in ballot requests. If we move it to somewhere more convenient for you, then we're gonna get 300 calls that we can't find the box, it's not there anymore. So box, zip code, make a vote plan.
Okay. Next question. Can I bring the ballot I received in the mail or email and cast it during early voting or on election day?
You can, but if you like to wait in lines, you're gonna have to wait in line to get into the polling room. There's no quick pass because you have your ballot in your hand. You're gonna have to wait in line, 6 to 10 feet social distance in front of you and behind. And then once you go in, if you have a desire to vote your ballot using one of our booths, then you will do so. But you're gonna have to deposit that ballot into the drop box or give it to the election judge to deposit into a yellow bag. You will not be able to scan that ballot at the vote center. You cannot. So you have to follow through. If you requested to vote by mail, and if you show up, and this is to everyone, if you show up with your ballot on election day during early voting, you have one of two options. You vote a provisional ballot and add about 30 minutes to your voting experience in the polls after checking in, or you vote your ballot in your hand that was mailed to you, but you will need to deposit into one of the yellow mail-in ballot bags that we will have at each vote center and early voting location, or they'll instruct you to deposit it in the exterior ballot drop box. So don't go through that burden of waiting in line, but if that's what you want, so be it.
Okay, if I add a stamp to my return envelope, will my ballot be mailed via first-class mail?
It's paid for. Don't add stamps. There's no need to add stamps. It's postage paid return envelope. And if you use the ballot drop box, you don't have to use any stamps. Also, the cost to county taxpayers for us to do a checklist of how many people use stamps to get refunded by the post office costs more than the actual savings. So don't bother with the stamp. There's a permit printed on that envelope for a reason. Return it through the post office or use a ballot drop box.
Are the ballot drop-off boxes operated and maintained by the U.S. Postal Service?
No, we maintain it. And we send, as if you saw the PowerPoint, we send bipartisan staff to empty those bins 1 to twice a day, every day, all the way up to November 3rd, 8 p.m.
Okay, do mail-in ballots and provisional ballots only count if the election is close?
No, you know, I stated, even if there's a landslide, depending on the contest, we will count. Our job is to ensure that your right to vote is protected, and we will count every ballot. If it's a provisional, we will research it first, and if we see that there's a legitimate rationale why you voted provisional and why we should accept it, we will. If you vote by mail, and if it's a landslide between candidate A and candidate B, we will count until the cows leave, okay? And even though CNN, Fox, and all these local newspapers, television say, the winner is so-and-so, trust me, my friend, we are scanning for weeks on end, and this election will not end until, for us, probably the first week of December. So that's another urban myth I want to burst right now. We count everything.
Very good. Good to know. When I vote, do I get a receipt or confirmation of my vote?
You get an I voted sticker.
Okay. And this is the last question, I believe, in the chat box. I'm going to double check it. Where can I go to find out the league positions on the ballot questions? And I'm pretty sure that's for you, Diane.
Yes, this is in general. The league does come to have positions on many, many issues because we do studies, we do the research, and we come to consensus among our league membership. So we do have positions on certain of these ballot questions tonight. And you can find them at our website, LWVMOCOMD.org, and I think it'll show up at the end as well. And I'm looking here at my list, 1, 2, 3, 4. There are 4 positions on these ballot questions. 2 of the ballot questions we have no position on at all. So if you want to see them, you may go to our website, or you may, and then you will find the positions there.
Thank you. We did get another question in the Q&A box, and that is, if I am mailing in a Maryland ballot from another state, do you still recommend not adding postage?
No, it's postage paid. You're good. Another thing I do want to say, if you live in Prince George's County, please use a Prince George's County drop box. And also if you're in the District of Columbia, use your corresponding drop box. Because at the end of the day, if you deposit your out of county or out of state ballot in our drop box, we're just going to take it to the post office. So we're not going to drive it to Chicago or to DC. So please use your corresponding drop box. But if you're out of state returning your Maryland ballot, there's a permit that's printed on the return envelope. There's no need for you to put postage.
So it looks like there are no more questions in the Q&A box. Back to you, Leslie. Thank you very much, experts.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so thank you, Sherry. Thank you very much. So on behalf of the Montgomery County League of Women Voters and the National Council of Jewish Women and all our other partners, I would like to thank Dr. ZELAYA and Diane for helping us understand the voting process and the ballot questions. And thank you all for attending tonight. You should see on your screen shortly the list of online places that you can use for any additional questions you may have about voting or the voting process. And please remember that voting is our most basic right. Our vote is our voice, so please use yours and vote. Thank you all very much, and good night.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Take care. Good night. Be
Good
safe.
night.
Return your ballots.